BlackFencer's Steel Generation French Heavy Cavalry Sword. Hi everyone, welcome to this Padre channel. My name is Rui and today I'm here to finally talk about the BlackFencer Steel Generation French Heavy Cavalry Sword, which is this large beast that you can see here. This is a successor to my synthetic version that I also had made way back when. So for context, this is the first version I had made in synthetic. Now, this blade is already second generation, as opposed to the white one, it's now the grey one. But one of the reasons that I've had the blade replaced to begin with, it's that for whatever reason, the construction of this blade always makes it bend forward. So that means, I'm not sure if I can get it fully on camera. I'm sure it's barely noticeable, true. Maybe you can see it more like this. Maybe not. As you can see, it kind of bends forward ever so slightly. And that happens with the synthetic version, the first version that I had, and it also happened with this second version. So that's quite strange. So that led me to eventually asking Alberto from BlackFencer to finally make this version in steel. And here we go. This is the steel version, exactly as I wanted it. There are of course a few things that I will be talking about in further detail, but this is as close as we could both get it in steel to what I originally wanted. For some context, what was this sword used for? It was used by primarily the French heavy cavalry, the Cuirassiers or Cuirassiers. I don't exactly know how to pronounce that word, but they were the French heavy cavalry units of the Napoleonic period. And they were very feared, and there was a very infamous, they are a very infamous unit of heavy cavalry. Of course, Matt Easton has a further and a more detailed video on the use of this sword, and it's, I was going to say it's good and bad things, although he talks a lot more bad than good about this sword. But I've always had a very big fascination about that unit. There's no secret that I've started my HEMA period, or better yet, my HEMA tenure as a saber practitioner. So I started with Rowit, and for the majority of time I've stayed with Rowit. But I've always had a big fascination over this cavalry unit. But one of the reasons why I actually like this sword so much, and one of the reasons why I insisted on this, is that if you are a cavalry, if you are in a heavy cavalry unit and you find yourself without a horse, you should be able to still defend yourself with this, right? So it's one of the reasons why I've always taken an interest on cavalry swords as well as infantry swords, because they will, or they would have been also used on foot if need be. Doesn't mean that I would regularly use as infantry swords, obviously not, but if the situation arises, you will need to be able to defend yourself. Now, of course, the sword is, like I said, as close as it could get to what I originally wanted. At the end of the video, I will leave you with the specs of this sword and the specs that I actually wanted. This is because there are a few things that you need to keep in mind, and I'll try and talk through it on the video regarding what I actually wanted. I didn't want a specific representation or a specific reproduction of an original. I wanted something that was more broad. So I went and I made the averages across multiple patterns, because they have the years, so on and so forth. Again, I will leave a list at the end of the video. And I wanted something that could represent the average more than one specific type. That's why you will probably not, if you are a Napoleonic enthusiast, you'll probably look at this and you'll say, oh, but that's wrong, and the backstrap is wrong, and the cap is wrong, and the bars are wrong, and the shape is wrong. There's a lot of things that, like I said, I wasn't really looking forward to making, you know, an exact copy. of an original, but more of something that I could actually use that could represent more or less the handling of one. So I've broken down this video into more or less 3 parts. One part in which I will talk more about the hilt, one part in which I will talk more about the blade, and then one part in which I will talk about the handling, and starting off with the hilt. So for this hilt, if, again, like I mentioned, if you're looking at this video, you probably already have some knowledge of a French Cuirassier sword. They are also called palache. But if I'm not mistaken, in the British nomenclature, a palache is just a straight sword. In the same way that you could call, for example, the 1796 heavy cavalry sword also a palache. So it's a straight cut and thrust sword used by heavy cavalry units. In this case, going by the hilt is, of course, as you can see here, it's gold plated, as BlackFencer has begun or has started doing this in recent years, with a old-fashioned and old-type rubber grip, which was something that I have to admit, I'm very sad to see that Alberto isn't doing these types of grips now, but this one actually came off perfect. It fits my hand pretty nicely if I'm using a light glove. If I'm using, of course, a heavier glove such as the Thox, they will hit sometimes the bars, if you will. So these bars here, sometimes it gets a little bit snagged. It's nothing that impedes movement, but when you're using one of these, you will want to use a heavy glove. Even though they're meant more for thrusting than cutting, you will be the one receiving the blows. Finish-wise, it's okay, considering all of the work that a BlackFencer has been doing. It mimics, to some degree, the originals pretty accurately. Again, given the craftsmanship and given the work that they do, I think it's doing a pretty good job at mimicking an original. This part here could be a little bit more polished, but that would come with a big problem, is that it wouldn't be able to be golden, because it needs to be golden and then it needs to be assembled. So if it's being assembled afterwards and you're polishing this a little bit, you're going to be screwing up the rest of the material here. Not sure if you can see here. There is another small thing about this hilt, and this is something that I've seen through some sparring, is that this part of the knuckle bow right here, it's not welded, because again, it couldn't be welded, otherwise it couldn't be golden. So it's just pressure fitted inside this bit, which means that sometimes if I am unlucky enough to receive a blow on the knuckle bow or on the side of the knuckle bow or something like that, it will come off. Either through one side or through the other side, it will come off, and then I need to bend it back inwards and make sure it stays locked in there. I'm pretty sure there's probably a fix for this. I just haven't had, the time or the imagination to actually fix this and make sure it stays fixed in there without, messing up the hilts. Otherwise, like I said, in terms of finishing, there isn't anything that I should really point out my finger on, because it's, given the craftsman limitations, I think it's a pretty good job. Even on the backstrap, the backstrap is gorgeous. Now, there is a small gap here, and I'm not sure if you can actually see it. There is a small gap between the backstrap and the grip. And it's really hard to see because it's just such a small, I'm pretty sure you can see it now. It's such a really small thing, but it doesn't impede anything. Whenever I'm holding it, I don't feel anything, even if I'm fighting. So, hilt-wise, this is a pretty good representation, and it's very much exactly what I wanted. It does the part. It plays the part well, and that's as much as I can ask for. That was the hilt part, and now we're going over the blade. I've had some comments ask me how is the blade holding up, because some people have said that they take a lot of damage. Again, I'll go and I'll address those questions in a moment. First things first, this blade wasn't specifically created for this sword. So, if you're looking at this, don't look at this as, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, don't look at this like an accurate representation or a replica of an original. Look at this as something that is meant to play the part, and it does so as good as it can. Okay, this blade is originally made for the 1796 steel version of BlackFencer's heavy cavalry sword, so the 1796 pattern. Okay, I'm sure it has a few changes here and there, especially on the fullers. I don't recall if they have this kind of fullers, and then it ends in a hatchet-like tip. So it isn't a spear point; it's more of a hatchet, even though it could be more angled and more aggressive. But I think it does the part pretty much as well as it does. As you can see here, the front is spatulated. I'm trying to get it on camera. Can I do it like this? Maybe. There you go. So it is spatulated. Flexibility. It flexes very nicely. I don't need to apply a lot of pressure for it to bend. So it's safe on the thrust, which was something that I was concerned about. I like my swords more rigid, but this one is pretty perfect. So I don't really complain a lot about this one. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is, of course, the edge damage. I've heard some comments saying that they take a lot of edge damage. Yes, just to some degree, yes. This has to do not only with the type of steel, but also the type of the blade construction. I keep saying the same thing to the point of ad nauseum, which is BlackFencer does something that I've seen rarely in other makers. If you look at, for example, the back edge, it is replicating as best as it can an original, so it has a very, very thick back edge all across the board. Of course it tapers because it needs edge taper, and does so the same on the front edge. Now the front edge, of course, it's going to be thinner, so if it is thinner, it will be, receiving more blows. Unless you're working with, say, Kvieten, for example, in which the blade construction is more of a dumbbell shape, it's only natural that it's going to take a lot less edge damage. But if you are creating something that handles more like an original, it will naturally take a lot more edge damage. Now, I have spoken to Alberto. Alberto did say that they have changed the process ever so slightly, which means that future generation blades will suffer less edge damage. I have one saber already on the way, and one rapier as well already on the way, so I will be testing those out. I absolutely adore every single saber that Alberto has done from BlackFencer. So, I mean, I've only almost exclusively bought BlackFencer weapons, and for a very good reason. They handle as originals, or to the best degree as originals can. So it's really one of the reasons that I keep going back to them more and more. Standard blade for the standard 1796 heavy cavalry, I don't have one to compare, but again, you look at the blade, you look at the hilt, everything is perfect as perfect can be. So let's take on to the final part of the video. So talking now about how does this handle? Well, it handles like a beast, and it should. It's a very heavy sword, meant to be used on horseback. So, where is my main concern on this one? And this is something that I did talk to Alberto about, and he did the best that he could to try and nail it down. This sword is almost. Again, take what Matt Easton says also with a bit of a grain of salt. Please don't get called out on this. This was almost meant to handle like a spear on horseback. Perfect. We all agree on that one. But if we look at the stats and the specifications of the types of swords that we had, it would also be similar to a rapier. So if we, and again, I'm talking out of memory, 1.3 kilos, so that's roughly the same weight as my early rapiers from Capoferro, as well as a 13 centimeter point of balance. So that's pretty much, I always have that rule. That would mean that the point of balance would be maybe around here somewhere. So the 13 centimeters, I'm bad at measuring from eyes, but it wouldn't be that bad. Maybe around here. Now the problem is that given the blade construction and the sword construction, point of balance is far forward than I would like. It's sitting at around 16 centimeters, and that is, it makes this more choppy than thrusty. if you will. Okay, so that means that you're going to feel more compelled to cut rather than thrust. It should be the other way around. This is meant to be used, like I mentioned, as a spear on horseback, so you are supposed to handle it more like a rapier to some degree. I can still use it almost like a rapier, okay, but the weight is too far forward, so I feel it pulling my wrist down as I try to do anything. Okay, so it's almost a struggle to keep it perfectly horizontal. So if I'm holding, say for example, an outside guard, I will struggle to keep it, because it's such a heavy sword and the point of balance so far forward, I will struggle a little bit to be able to keep it perfect. Does it make or break the sword? Definitely not. Could it be better? It could, but then again, it is meant to be a beast, be it on horseback, be it on foot. What could have been changed? Blade length is actually fine. So the blade, I wouldn't touch the blade in any single bit, but these hilts, they were, the originals, they were big, they were very big, because if you're holding it on horseback, it almost serves as a shield for your head. And I'm not really sure, I'm trying to do the best I can without stabbing my phone. If I'm holding it in front of my head, it's not really serving me as a shield. It should be a lot bigger. So that way, if you add more mass to the hilt, point of balance goes downwards more. And if you make the hilt larger, not only are you going to be able to fit a heavier glove in there, you will also be able to add more mass, bring the point of balance down to the 13 centimeters where it should be. So this is it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's, again, I don't use this sword as much as I can, only because it really is a beast, and you do feel all the blows, and if you do miss one, well, you're gonna get hit back. It, fortunately enough, and just as an added bonus, even if it did get struck a few times on the hilt, you can barely feel it. Sorry, you can barely feel it. You can barely see it. It doesn't get scratched as badly as you would think. It can, but it's doing the part absolutely perfect. So, great sword. BlackFencer does not sell these as standard items, so if you want one, keep all of this in mind. Maybe request these changes in advance to Alberto. It's always going to be a one-off commission kind of thing, more like the Schiavonas that he's also made. Overall, I do love this sword. There is, again, just a few minor things that I would change about them, but it's still a pretty great sword overall. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.